Massive stone temples stand silent on Mediterranean islands, built before the pyramids or even the wheel existed. On Malta and Gozo, these ancient complexes have confused experts for hundreds of years. By the end of this journey, you will understand how a forgotten people achieved one of humanity's earliest architectural wonders. We will explore how they moved colossal stones without metal tools and why their entire civilization suddenly vanished. What does it feel like to walk in the footsteps of builders whose names we will never know? To stand before the great stones of Ġgantija is to look back into a past so deep it defies easy understanding. These temples were already ancient ruins when the first stones for the Great Pyramid of Giza were being quarried. The oldest Maltese temples, like Ġgantija on Gozo, were raised between 3600 and 3200 before the Common Era. Now picture the timeline of human civilization. The Great Pyramid, often seen as the very definition of antiquity, was built around 2580 to 2560 before the Common Era. That simple math reveals a staggering truth. The temples of Malta are over 1,000 years older than the pyramids of Egypt. When these Maltese complexes were at their peak, the cultures of Egypt and Mesopotamia were still in their formative stages. The stones of Ġgantija had already weathered centuries by the time the first pharaohs united the Nile Valley. This places these structures squarely in the Neolithic period, the final age of stone. This was a world without metal. Every single block was quarried, shaped, and moved using tools made only of stone, wood, and bone. There were no pulleys, no wheels, no draft animals to provide brute force. The sheer scale of their ambition had to be matched by ingenuity alone. How do you move a stone weighing many tons without any of the technology we assume is necessary? What kind of society could organize such a project, not just once, but across multiple islands, creating a sacred landscape that endured for over a millennium? The timeline does not just establish their age, it magnifies the mystery of their creation. Yet we know almost nothing about the people who achieved this. Who were these architects of the ancient world? No written records survive, no king lists or myths that speak their names. They are known to us only through the silent evidence they left behind in the earth. From the bones and seeds found in their villages, we know they were farmers. They cultivated wheat and barley, herded sheep, goats, and cattle, and fished the rich surrounding seas. Their tools were made from stone, bone, and obsidian, a volcanic glass traded across the water, hinting at occasional contact with the wider world. But the most telling clue about their society is not what they built, but what they did not build. Archaeologists have found no trace of defensive walls, no fortified positions, and very few weapons. This suggests a culture that lived in remarkable peace for over 1,000 years, a society that channeled its collective energy not into warfare, but into worship and monumental construction. They lived in relative isolation on their small islands, developing a unique and complex spiritual life entirely their own. They carved intricate spirals onto altar stones and created vast, full-figured statues of women that may represent goddesses or ancestors. They created a world of profound ritual, a world that thrived for centuries, and then suddenly it all stopped. Around 2500 before the Common Era, every single temple was abandoned. The people who built them, this peaceful, ingenious culture, vanished from the islands completely. We are left with the what and the how, but the who and the why remain two of history's most enduring puzzles. Their legacy is written in stone across the islands, a collection of temples each with its own character and secrets. On the island of Gozo, the Ġgantija Temples rise from the landscape, their name meaning giant's tower, born from local folklore that told of a giantess who built them while carrying her child. The scale of these two temples, enclosed within a single massive wall, makes the legend feel almost plausible. Across the water on Malta's southern cliffs, the complexes of Ħaġar Qim and Mnajdra stand in stark, beautiful isolation battered by sea winds. Here, the ancient architects demonstrated a profound understanding of the cosmos, designing doorways and chambers that capture the rising sun on the solstices and equinoxes, painting the limestone interiors with precise blades of light. Further inland, the Tarxien temples represent the peak of their artistic and architectural achievement. This is the most elaborate complex, a labyrinth of altars and passageways adorned with deep, intricate spiral carvings and housing the largest stone blocks used in any of the temples, some weighing many tons. And then there is the profound silence of the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, a world apart from the open-air sites. This is a massive, three-level subterranean temple carved entirely from the living rock, a dark and echoing counterpart to the temples above ground, where rituals of life and death were held deep within the earth. Each of these sites is a chapter in a story we are still learning to read, setting the stage for a closer look at the engineering and spiritual beliefs that brought them into being. The sheer physical presence of Ġgantija is enough to silence any visitor. Its outer wall is a cyclopean barrier of limestone, a defiant statement from a Stone Age culture. Some of these individual blocks are colossal, weighing more than 50 tons each. That is heavier than a fully loaded semi-truck, a mass of stone moved and lifted into place by human hands alone. It is no wonder that later peoples, unable to comprehend its true origins, spun tales of giants. They spoke of a giantess named Sansuna, who built these towers while carrying her child, eating nothing but broad beans and honey. The legend, born from awe, is a testament to the scale of the achievement that defied later understanding. Within this giant's wall lie two separate temples, arranged side by side like conjoined twins, each following a distinctive clover leaf or trefoil floor plan. This is not a random pile of rocks, but a sophisticated architectural design, a series of semicircular chambers called apses arranged along a central corridor. The scale continues inside, where the altars themselves are fashioned from single, enormous stone slabs. To stand before them is to feel a profound sense of reverence and bafflement in equal measure. How did they transport these multi-ton stones from quarries over a kilometer away? Without wheels, without pulleys, the only plausible method involved a staggering communal effort. We can envision teams of people using log rollers, ropes made from animal hide, and earthen ramps, leveraging sheer numbers and ingenuity to achieve what their technology lacked. Every stone placed at Ġgantija represents a victory of collective will over physical limitation, a puzzle that makes the giantess myth feel almost reasonable. While the massive walls of Ġgantija speak of raw power, the temples of Ħaġar Qim and Mnajdra tell a story written in sunlight and stone. Perched on Malta's southern cliffs, these structures face the open Mediterranean, their surfaces shaped by thousands of years of sea wind and salt spray. The stone used here is a soft, pale Globigerina limestone, a material that was easier for Neolithic builders to carve and shape but has paid a heavy price to the elements. At Ħaġar Qim, the great stone slabs are pitted and rounded, almost like melting ice, their surfaces smoothed away by relentless weather. This erosion is a testament to their immense age, a visible record of time's slow passage. Yet this vulnerability of the stone makes the precision found at the nearby Mnajdra complex all the more astonishing. Just a short walk down the slope, the lower temple of Mnajdra is a masterpiece of cosmic alignment, built from the tougher coralline limestone. Here, the builders demonstrated a knowledge that feels almost out of place in the Neolithic world. The temple's doorway is a stone calendar, meticulously oriented to the sun's journey across the sky. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the first rays of the rising sun pass directly through this main doorway, casting a perfect rectangle of light deep into the central corridor, illuminating the innermost altar. This is not a vague alignment but a precise and repeatable event. The solar calendar continues with the solstices. During the summer solstice, the sun's rays form a distinct slab of light on the edge of a large stone slab to the right of the doorway. 6 months later, at the winter solstice, the dawn light paints a similar, perfectly aligned rectangle on a matching slab to the left. What does this tell us about the people who built it? This was more than just architecture. It was a sacred clock, a way to mark the seasons for planting and harvest, to predict the changing year, and to connect their rituals to the fundamental cycles of the cosmos. To achieve such precision required generations of observation, a deep understanding of astronomy, and the ability to encode that knowledge into immense, permanent stone structures. This was a society that watched the heavens and listened to the earth, building a bridge between the two that still stands today. Yet the artistic soul of these people is nowhere clearer than at the Tarxien Temples. Here, on the main island of Malta, the architectural ambition of Ġgantija meets a new level of artistic expression. The complex is a sprawling labyrinth of 4 interconnected structures, a culmination of more than 1,000 years of building tradition. The sheer scale of the stonework is breathtaking, with the largest blocks used anywhere in the Maltese islands, some stretching over 5 meters in length. But it is the art carved into these stones that truly brings the silent site to life. The most striking figures are the colossal statues, often called the Fat Ladies. These are not small figurines but monumental lower halves of statues, with enormous, stylized legs and pleated skirts carved from solid stone. They are believed to represent a powerful mother goddess or perhaps a high priestess, a tangible symbol of a culture that revered fertility, abundance, and the feminine divine. These figures would have dominated the sacred spaces, their presence a constant, powerful reminder of the spiritual forces guiding the community. Beyond the statues, the very walls are a canvas. Intricate spiral motifs coil and unwind across the limestone slabs. Some of these spirals are among the oldest and most complex designs found anywhere in Europe, a hypnotic pattern repeated throughout the temples, perhaps symbolizing the cycle of life, death, and rebirth, or the eternal movement of the cosmos. The artistry extends to the everyday world as well. One remarkable stone block is carved with a detailed procession of animals, a line of bulls and rams marching in a perpetual parade. This is not merely decoration, it is a narrative. Archaeologists found clear evidence here of animal sacrifice, with altars containing sharp flint knives and the burnt bones of sheep, goats, and cattle. The carvings likely depict the very rituals that took place within these walls, a permanent record of offerings made to secure the favor of the gods, to ensure a good harvest, or to mark a sacred passage. At Tarxien, the abstract beliefs of this culture become concrete, visible in the deep carvings of goddesses, sacred spirals, and sacrificial processions that have endured for millennia. But if the temples above ground reach for the sun, the Hypogeum of Ħaġar descends into the earth's silent embrace. This is no natural cave, but an immense, 3-level subterranean sanctuary carved by hand from the solid limestone, a labyrinthine world that perfectly mirrors the temples on the surface. Every architectural feature found above is reproduced here in the rock, from the trilithon doorways to the corbelled ceilings that mimic the ancient roofs. It is as if the builders took the entire blueprint for their sacred world and inverted it, creating a dark twin deep underground. The journey through its levels is a descent into the very heart of their beliefs. The upper level feels like an entryway, a series of simple caves and burial chambers that served as the first repository for the dead. Descending further, the middle level opens into a breathtaking complexity of carved rooms, ceremonial halls, and ornately decorated spaces. Here, the famous sleeping lady figurine was found, a serene clay statuette resting as if in eternal slumber, perhaps a guide for souls passing into the afterlife. This middle world was likely the primary stage for rituals, a place where the living could commune with the ancestors whose bones filled the chambers above. And then, at the very bottom, lies the most profound space of all, the so-called Holy of Holies. This chamber is carved directly from the rock in a perfect imitation of the trefoil temples above, its space defined by massive stone slabs. Its acoustics are unnervingly powerful, where even the softest whisper is amplified and carried throughout the entire lower level, creating an oracle-like effect. This was not merely a tomb, it was a place of transformation. The discovery of the carefully arranged remains of over 7,000 individuals confirms its role as a collective burial site, a final resting place for generations. To walk these silent halls is to understand that for these people, the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead was not a wall, but a porous membrane, and the Hypogeum was the sacred space where those two worlds met. The stones themselves hold the first clues to this ancient engineering puzzle. The builders worked with two distinct types of local limestone, choosing each for its specific properties with a practical wisdom we can still admire. For the massive outer walls and foundations, they quarried the incredibly tough coralline limestone. This stone is hard and resilient, able to withstand the elements and bear immense weight, forming a durable shell for the sacred spaces within. But inside the temples, for the elaborate carvings, altars, and decorative screens, they turned to the softer, finer Globigerina limestone. This material was easier to shape and carve with their simple stone tools, allowing for the intricate spirals and detailed statues that define their art. This conscious selection of materials reveals a sophisticated understanding of their resources, an early form of material science applied on a monumental scale. Moving these stones, however, was a challenge of a different magnitude. How do you transport a 50-ton block from a quarry over a kilometer away without wheels or beasts of burden? The most widely accepted theory involves a symphony of coordinated human effort. We can picture teams of people using log rollers, placing felled tree trunks beneath a massive slab and slowly, painstakingly rolling it forward. Levers made from strong wooden poles would have been used to inch the stones upward onto new rollers, a process of immense patience and strength. Earthen ramps might have been built to raise the colossal blocks into their final positions. The process would have been agonizingly slow, a cacophony of shouted commands, straining muscles, and creaking ropes made from animal hide. For the finer work, like positioning the massive stone doorways and screens, archaeologists have noticed telltale holes drilled into the temple floors. These holes suggest a clever pivot system. A stone door could have been set on a central pivot stone, with its base nestled into the hole, allowing it to be swung open and closed with surprising ease, a simple yet brilliant solution for managing access to the inner sanctums. Despite these plausible theories, the exact methods remain educated guesses, a testament to a level of ingenuity that was so effective it has, ironically, obscured its own tracks. The true secret of their construction may not lie in a lost technology, but in a lost social organization, a communal spirit powerful enough to move mountains, or at least to rearrange them into temples. The true genius of these builders lies not in what they had, but in what they did with it. Their toolkit was a testament to Neolithic ingenuity, transforming simple materials into instruments capable of shaping a sacred landscape. For the heavy work of quarrying and rough shaping the colossal stones, they relied on chert, a hard, flint-like rock that could be knapped into sharp, effective hammers, picks, and wedges. Workers would have patiently hammered wooden wedges into natural fissures in the limestone, then soaked the wood with water to make it swell, slowly and deliberately prying massive blocks free from the bedrock. For finer work, they turned to obsidian, a volcanic glass traded across the sea. This material could be flaked into blades sharper than modern surgical steel, ideal for detailed carving, smoothing surfaces, and perhaps even scoring the intricate spiral patterns that adorn the temple walls. But the evidence for their sophistication is most clearly drilled into the stone itself. Look closely at the massive stone slabs and you will find perfectly cylindrical holes. These were not pounded out with brute force, they were meticulously drilled, most likely using a simple bow drill. A craftsman would have fixed a pointed stone or hardened wood bit to a spindle, wrapped a bowstring around it and sawed back and forth. The real magic was the abrasive. By adding wet sand, a constant stream of gritty quartz particles under the drill tip, they created a grinding paste that could slowly, relentlessly chew through solid limestone. This was a fundamental understanding of physics and material science, using a soft tool with a hard abrasive to conquer the stone. How did they achieve such precise astronomical alignments and perfect circular chambers with such basic tools? The answer likely hung on ropes and stakes. They almost certainly used long ropes, perhaps made of twisted animal hide or plant fibers, anchored to a central wooden stake to mark out the grand circles and sweeping curves of the temple walls. Simple sighting poles aligned with the horizon would have allowed them to track the sun's position over generations, translating celestial movements into permanent stone calendars. Their technology was elegant in its simplicity, a perfect marriage of available resources and profound understanding. They did not need metal because their knowledge of stone, rope, and the turning earth was enough to build a world that would echo for millennia. So what was the true purpose of these stone labyrinths? They likely served not one, but three interwoven functions, acting as the absolute heart of their society. The most compelling theory paints them as centers for a powerful fertility cult. The evidence is literally carved in stone. Those full-figured statues found at Tarxien, the so-called fat ladies, are not isolated art. They are echoed by thousands of smaller clay figurines discovered across the sites, many depicting women with exaggerated hips and thighs. In a world utterly dependent on the land and the flock for survival, the cycle of birth, growth, and abundance would have been paramount. These figures likely represent a mother goddess, a divine embodiment of the earth's fertility, worshipped to ensure rich harvests and healthy herds. The temples, then, were not just passive places of prayer. They were active machines for sustaining life, where rituals and offerings were made to secure the favor of this powerful deity. But these structures were just as intimately connected with death. The Hypogeum offers the most profound evidence, a subterranean city of the dead that held the carefully arranged remains of over 7,000 individuals. This was not a secret tomb, but a planned, sacred counterpart to the temples above. The practice of collective burial, where bones were gathered and stored together over generations, suggests a powerful belief in an ancestral community. The living would descend into that echoing darkness to perform rites, to commune with those who came before, and to place their own dead within the collective memory of the people. The temple complex was a complete spiritual circuit, managing the transition from life in the world above to the afterlife in the realm below. Above it all, the sky itself was part of the ritual. The precise solar alignments at Mnajdra were far more than a Neolithic calendar. They were a celestial drama, a way to anchor their rituals to the unchangeable rhythm of the cosmos. When the dawn light sliced perfectly through the doorway on the equinox, it was a moment of divine confirmation. The sun god, or the life force itself, was entering the temple, blessing the people, and marking a time to plant or to harvest. This was a sacred clock that governed their entire yearly cycle of work and worship. The temples were therefore a grand unification of their entire world. They were a church for worshipping the forces of life, a cemetery for honoring the ancestors, and an observatory for tracking the heavens. Life, death, and the turning of the seasons were not separate concepts, but a single, continuous flow, and these stone structures were the central hub where all these powerful currents met. These corpulent figures, found from the smallest shrine to the grandest temple, are the most powerful visual signature of this lost culture. Carved from stone or molded from clay, they consistently present a figure of immense proportions, with vast hips, thick thighs, and full breasts, often depicted in a seated or reclining posture of absolute repose. One of the most famous, the so-called sleeping lady from the Hypogeum, lies curled on her side, her body ample and her expression one of peaceful, eternal slumber. She is small enough to hold in your hand a personal object of devotion. At the other end of the scale are the monumental lower halves of statues from Tarxien, where enormous pillar-like legs are carved with pleated skirts, their sheer mass suggesting a presence that once dominated the entire sacred space. Why this singular, overwhelming focus on the fertile female form? For a society living on the precarious edge of survival, entirely dependent on the land and their flocks, the concepts of fertility and abundance were not abstract ideas. They were matters of life and death, a successful harvest, the health of the herds, the birth of healthy children. These were the forces that determined whether the community would thrive or perish. These statues are widely interpreted as the physical form of a supreme mother goddess, a divine embodiment of the earth itself. She was not just a symbol of birth, but a guardian of the entire life cycle, from the sprouting seed to the final harvest, and perhaps even into the realm of death and rebirth, as the serene sleeping figures might suggest. This was likely more than a simple belief. It was the very bedrock of their society, the unifying religious force that could mobilize an entire population. Imagine the social cohesion required to build these temples over generations. That level of commitment does not spring from scattered personal superstitions. It points to a shared, powerful faith, a collective purpose that gave meaning to their labor. The worship of a mother goddess who governed all creation would have provided exactly that. It was a spiritual contract. By honoring her with their most immense and beautiful creations, by offering sacrifices at her altars, they believed they could ensure her continued blessing. The rains would come, the grains would grow, and the people would endure. This divine figure, in all her abundant glory, was the reason for the temples, the inspiration for the art, and the spiritual glue that held this extraordinary civilization together for over 1,000 years. Beyond the statues of goddesses, the temple walls whisper in a more abstract language. Carved into the soft Globigerina limestone, intricate spiral motifs coil and uncoil in a hypnotic dance. These are not random scratches, but a deliberate and complex sacred code, repeated with such frequency that it must have held profound meaning for the people who carved them. Some spirals are tight, concentric circles that seem to pull the eye inward, while others unwind in great, flowing arcs across the stone. One compelling theory suggests they represent the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, a visual echo of the seasons they tracked so precisely with their architecture. The spiral has no beginning and no end, a perfect symbol for a culture that venerated the continuous flow of existence from the sprouting seed to the ancestral spirit. Other interpretations see in these curling lines the movement of water, or perhaps the swirling visions induced by ritual trance states, a gateway to the spirit world. The art was not confined to carvings alone. Faint traces of red ochre pigment found on some walls reveal a more vibrant past. Imagine these sober stone chambers once alive with color, their walls painted with sacred symbols in brilliant, earthy reds, a visual spectacle meant to awe and inspire during ceremonies. Further adding to the ritual atmosphere are mysterious pitted designs and carefully drilled holes that dot the altars and paving stones. These small, cup-like depressions were likely functional, used to hold offerings of liquid libations, perhaps water, wine, or blood, that would slowly seep into the earth as an offering to the goddess or the ancestors. This art was never just decoration. Every spiral, every spot of color, every ritual hole was an integral part of a sacred dialogue. It was a visual prayer, a map of the cosmos, and a tool for ritual, all fused together into a silent language that gave shape to their deepest beliefs. Deep within the Hypogeum, one small chamber holds an acoustic secret that has captivated researchers for decades. This is the so-called oracle room, a modest space carved from the living rock with a distinctive, arched niche set into one wall. The magic is not in how it looks, but in how it transforms sound. If you were to speak directly into that niche, even in a low whisper, your voice would not simply fade away. Instead, it is amplified into a deep, resonant echo that seems to vibrate through the stone itself, a low-frequency hum that travels through the labyrinthine passages and into the deepest chambers. This is not a random acoustic quirk. Modern scientific analysis has revealed that this chamber is perfectly tuned. It resonates powerfully at a specific frequency of 110 Hz, a low tone that falls within the range of a male baritone voice. At this precise frequency, the sound waves are reinforced by the room's dimensions and shape, creating an overwhelming sensory experience. The effect on the human brain is profound. Studies have shown that exposure to sound at 110 Hz can alter brainwave patterns, potentially inducing states of heightened focus, relaxation, or even mild trance. Now envision a ritual in that dark, echoing space. A priest or shaman would speak a chant or a question into the niche, and their voice would be transformed into a booming, otherworldly pronouncement that filled the entire subterranean temple. To the gathered participants, it would have seemed as if the very earth was speaking, as if the ancestors or the goddess herself were answering from the walls. This was not merely a room, it was a sacred instrument, an engineered system designed to blur the line between the human and the divine. The builders did not just understand stone, they mastered the physics of sound, using it as a direct conduit to the spirit world. The precision at Mnajdra was not an isolated wonder but part of a much broader architectural tradition. Across the islands, other temple structures reveal their own celestial conversations. At the Ġgantija complex, the southern temple's entrance appears to be oriented toward the rising of the star Sirius, a brilliant beacon in the dawn sky that would have heralded the crucial summer season. The great temple of Ħaġar Qim, while more eroded, also contains a stone slab with a circular hole, a so-called oracle hole, through which the first rays of the rising summer solstice sun would have projected a brilliant disk of light into the dark interior. These were not coincidences. For a farming society, knowing exactly when to plant and when to harvest was the difference between abundance and famine. These stone calendars provided that essential, unerring schedule, turning abstract celestial movements into a practical guide for survival. But their purpose ran far deeper than mere agriculture. The solstices and equinoxes were not just dates on a farmer's almanac, they were sacred turning points in the year, moments of immense spiritual power. We can envision the entire community gathering in the pre-dawn darkness, waiting in the chill air outside the temple for the moment the sun's first golden edge would break the horizon and send a blade of light slicing perfectly through the doorway to strike the central altar. That dramatic event would have been accompanied by chanting, offerings, and celebration, a communal reaffirmation of their place in the cosmic order. The temples were, in effect, massive ritual machines designed to capture these fleeting celestial moments and make them tangible. They allowed this people to literally stop time, to hold a conversation with the heavens, and to build a permanent, stone-based record of their astronomical knowledge that would outlast them by thousands of years. Yet another layer of mystery covers the Maltese islands, cut directly into the ancient limestone. Scattered across the high plateaus, a network of strange parallel tracks known as the cart ruts defies easy explanation. These are not faint scratches but deep grooves, sometimes worn over half a meter into the solid rock, running in perfectly parallel lines as if made by the wheels of some vast prehistoric vehicle. But this was the Stone Age, 1,000 years before the wheel was invented in Mesopotamia. So what created these enduring marks? One of the most persistent theories connects them directly to the temple builders. Perhaps these ruts were not made by wheels at all, but by the repeated passage of sledges or sliding carts. Imagine teams of people dragging massive stone blocks, the same stones used to build with, above Ġgantija and Tarxien on wooden sleds. Over generations, the constant grinding passage of these heavy sleds, loaded with tons of limestone, could have gradually worn these deep channels into the bedrock. This theory paints a picture of ancient highways, well-worn paths connecting quarries to the great temple sites, a logical and practical solution to a monumental logistics problem. But the mystery deepens when you follow the ruts themselves. They do not always run in simple, straight lines. They curve, they merge with other tracks at junctions that look like prehistoric railroad switches, and in places like Clapham Junction, a famous site on Malta, they form a bewildering, tangled web of intersecting grooves. Some ruts even run straight off sheer cliff edges, suggesting the coastline has dramatically changed since they were made. This complex network argues against a simple, single-purpose like stone transport. Could they have been part of an elaborate agricultural system? Some researchers propose they were channels for irrigation, designed to control the flow of rainwater across the porous rock, guiding it to fields. Others suggest they were used to cultivate vines or olives, with the grooves holding the bases of plants in the thin soil. Then there are the more symbolic interpretations. Their converging paths, their clear intentionality, and their sheer prevalence across the landscape hint at a possible ritual function. Perhaps these were processional ways, routes walked during sacred festivals to connect various spiritual sites, their very creation an act of devotion that left a permanent scar on the land. The most fascinating clue is their age. While difficult to date precisely, the weathering of the ruts and their geographical relationship to known temple sites suggest they are likely contemporary with the temple building period. This means the same enigmatic people who raised the colossal stones and aligned them with the stars were also carving these profound lines into the very skin of their world. The cart ruts are a parallel puzzle to the temples, a different but perhaps related expression of the same culture's need to shape their environment, to leave a mark that would last for millennia, for reasons we can only begin to guess. For over 1,000 years, their civilization flourished, its sophistication etched deeper into the stone with each passing generation. The temples evolved from relatively simple structures into the vast, intricate labyrinths of Tarxien, their art growing more confident and complex. This was a culture at its zenith, a society that had perfected its relationship with the gods, the earth, and the sky. And then, in what seems a historical blink of an eye, it was all over. Around 2500 before the Common Era, every single temple was systematically abandoned. The fires in the altars were extinguished, the sacred oracle chambers fell silent, and the islands were left to a new people who had no memory of the builders. What could possibly cause such a complete and total collapse? The stones offer no tales of conquest. There are no layers of ash from burning villages, no caches of weapons, no mass graves filled with the victims of war. The end did not come from the outside. It came from within, a slow unraveling that may have been centuries in the making. One compelling theory points to the land itself. For over a millennium, the islands supported a growing population through intensive farming. They cleared the forests for fields and to fuel the fires for cooking and for making the plaster that coated their homes. This relentless demand on a fragile ecosystem could have led to catastrophic soil erosion. The thin, precious topsoil, once held in place by tree roots, would have been washed away by winter rains, leaving behind the barren, rocky landscape we see in parts of Malta today. The very farming that sustained them may have ultimately starved them. Compounding this, the climate was changing. Geological records from this period indicate a significant shift toward a drier, more arid climate across the Mediterranean. A prolonged drought would have been a death sentence for an already stressed agricultural system. The rains failed, the springs dried up, and the crops withered in the fields. Famine would have spread, followed inevitably by disease, as a malnourished population became vulnerable to epidemics. Could a people who had so carefully built their world around celestial cycles and earth goddesses have seen this environmental collapse as a divine abandonment? Their entire worldview was built on a contract with the gods, a belief that their rituals ensured the cycle of life. When that cycle broke, when the prayers and offerings no longer brought rain, their faith itself may have crumbled. The social order, so perfectly geared toward peaceful cooperation for monumental building projects, would have fractured under the strain of hunger and despair. The priests lost their authority, the communal spirit shattered, and the people simply left, dispersing across the sea in search of a land that could still sustain them. The mystery is not that a civilization fell, but that one so stable, so creative, and so deeply rooted could vanish without a single enemy to blame, leaving behind only silent stones and a question that hangs in the Mediterranean air. The silence that fell over the temples was absolute. For centuries, the great stone circles stood empty, their altars cold and their sacred calendars unobserved. Then the islands saw new arrivals. A different people with a new way of life crossed the sea to Malta. These were the Bronze Age people, and their world was utterly alien to the one that had come before. Archaeologists see this stark transition in the earth itself, a clear line in the soil separating two distinct cultures. The new inhabitants brought with them a completely different set of beliefs and customs. They did not build massive communal temples. They cremated their dead and placed the ashes in individual urns, a sharp departure from the collective burials of the Hypogeum. They had no use for the colossal stone statues of goddesses. The spiritual world of the temple builders, which had flourished for over a millennium, meant nothing to them. It was as if one civilization had been completely erased and a new one written over the top. So what catastrophic event could have created such a clean and total break? The evidence points away from a sudden, violent invasion and toward a slow, internal collapse. The very success of their society may have sown the seeds of its destruction. Generations of intensive farming and tree clearing to support their population would have stripped the thin, fragile topsoil from the rocky islands. When the rains came, there were no roots to hold the earth in place, and the life-giving soil washed into the sea. This environmental degradation would have made the islands profoundly vulnerable. Then climate change delivered the final blow. Geological records show a significant shift toward a drier, more arid climate across the Mediterranean around this time. A prolonged and severe drought would have been the final, crushing blow for an already strained agricultural system. The crops would have failed season after season. The springs and streams they relied upon would have dwindled to nothing. Famine would have spread silently through the villages. A population weakened by hunger is a population ripe for disease. It is easy to imagine a plague sweeping through the malnourished people, decimating their numbers and shattering their social order. Their entire worldview was a sacred contract with a goddess of fertility. They built temples to ensure her blessings of rain and abundance. When the rain stopped and the earth refused to yield, their faith itself would have crumbled. The priests who commanded the building of temples lost their authority when their prayers went unanswered. The communal spirit that moved 50-ton stones evaporated in the face of starvation. Did they die out entirely on the islands, or did the last survivors gather their families and sail away in a desperate search for a new home, leaving their sacred stones behind as a monument to a broken promise? We may never know. Their vanishing act is as profound and haunting as the magnificent structures they left behind. Centuries of silence were broken not by scholars, but by the blade of a farmer's plow. In the early 19th century, as Malta was drawn into the modern world, the island's ancient secrets began to resurface quite literally from the soil. A farmer tilling his field in Tarxien would strike with a clang against a massive, carved stone slab hidden just beneath the surface. At Ġgantija above Ġgantija, local villagers had always known the giant's tower, but its true age was a matter of legend, not history. These chance encounters sparked a slow, often clumsy, process of rediscovery. Early antiquarians, mesmerized by the sheer scale of the structures, could not believe such sophistication was possible in a Stone Age culture. They attributed the temples to anyone but the island's Neolithic inhabitants. Popular theories pointed to the Phoenicians, the famous seafaring merchants of the ancient Mediterranean, or even to a lost colony from the legendary city of Atlantis. These fantastical ideas were a product of their time, an inability to accept that a local prehistoric people could have been the architects of their own monumental past. The true revolution in understanding would arrive with a new scientific mindset and a meticulous archaeologist named Sir Themistocles Zammit. In the early 20th century, Zammit began his pioneering excavations at the Tarxien complex, a site that had baffled researchers for decades. His work was a model of the new, careful archaeology. He did not simply hunt for treasure, but meticulously recorded every artifact, every layer of soil, every fragment of bone. It was under his direction that the full glory of Tarxien was revealed, including the colossal statue bases and the intricate spiral-carved altars. Zammit was among the first to seriously propose that these structures were the product of an indigenous Neolithic culture, a radical idea that was met with skepticism. The final, irrefutable proof would come from a technology he could never have imagined. Decades later, the development of radiocarbon dating in the mid-20th century provided the ultimate key. When scientists tested charcoal from the temple hearths and bones from the Hypogeum, the results were staggering. The dates consistently pointed to a period between 3600 and 2400 before the Common Era. The temples were not merely old, they were older than anyone had dared to suppose, predating the pyramids by a full millennium and standing as some of the oldest free-standing stone structures on Earth. This scientific evidence shattered the old theories of Phoenician builders and forced a complete rewriting of European prehistory, finally giving the silent builders of Malta their rightful and astonishing place in the story of human civilization. This global significance was formally recognized in 1980, when the major temple sites were collectively inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This designation was more than an honor, it was a vital commitment to their survival. UNESCO acknowledged these structures as masterpieces of human creative genius and unique testimony to a mysterious cultural tradition. They stand as the world's oldest free-standing stone buildings, a title that carries with it an immense responsibility for preservation. The very stones that have endured for over 5,000 years are now facing their greatest threats, not from human hands, but from the slow, relentless forces of the modern world. The soft Globigerina limestone of Ħaġar Qim is especially vulnerable. For millennia, it weathered the sea winds, but today those winds carry invisible, corrosive enemies. Industrial pollution and acid rain, born from a world the builders could never have conceived, are now eating away at the intricate carvings and rounded forms. The salt crystallizes within the stone's pores, forcing the surface to flake and crumble like dry sand. To walk through Ħaġar Qim today is to see a race against time made visible. The entire complex is now sheltered under vast white tensile tents, like a field hospital for an ancient, ailing giant. These are not permanent solutions, but a desperate holding action. They shield the temples from direct rainfall and the worst of the sun's rays, slowing the decay but unable to stop it completely. Beneath this modern canopy, a quiet army of conservators works with the patience of archaeologists. They meticulously clean the stones with soft brushes, consolidate fragile surfaces with special resins, and monitor every minute crack and shift. Their work is a delicate dance, an attempt to stabilize the structures without altering their essential character, to protect the legacy of the past without erasing the beautiful, tragic scars of time. These efforts ask us a profound question. Can a monument that has survived millennia of natural change now be saved from the unintended consequences of our own progress? The protective tents are a symbol of our commitment, a promise to the unknown builders that their silent stone prayer will not vanish from the earth on our watch. These iconic figures of ample stone and clay have long been the silent centerpiece of the temple story. For decades, they were almost universally labeled as representations of a great mother goddess, a divine figure of fertility and the earth. This interpretation feels natural, a perfect fit for an ancient farming society. But what if we have been too quick to assign a single, simple meaning to their profound silence? A closer look reveals a more complex and debated picture. Perhaps these were not goddesses at all, but highly venerated ancestors. In a culture that practiced collective burial and clearly revered its dead, carving a large, seated figure of a respected clan matriarch would be a powerful way to keep her wisdom and presence alive within the community. She would become a permanent part of the temple, an eternal guardian of family and tradition. Another compelling theory suggests they represent powerful priestesses. These could be portraits of real, living women who held immense religious and social authority, the spiritual leaders who orchestrated the rituals within these very walls. Their ample size would then symbolize not just fertility, but also high status, wealth, and an abundance of resources, a sign of their crucial role in a prosperous society. The statues could even be symbolic portraits of abundance itself, not of a specific deity, but of the desired state of the entire community. They are a prayer in physical form, a hope for full storehouses and healthy children made manifest in stone. This debate forces us to confront a difficult truth about studying prehistory. We are looking through a lens clouded by our own time and our own biases. The mother goddess theory became popular in the 20th century, influenced by contemporary ideas about matriarchal pasts and earth-centered spirituality. We project our own yearning for a simpler, more peaceful ancient world onto these stones. But the society that built these temples was not simple, and its spiritual life was likely as layered and complex as our own. To label them with a single, modern term risks flattening their rich, unknown reality. The true meaning of the fat ladies may be forever lost to us, but their central role is undeniable. They sit at the very heart of the mystery, challenging us to look beyond our assumptions and listen more carefully to the quiet echoes they left behind. The silent stones of Malta have always invited grand speculation. When their true age was first uncovered, the idea of a local Stone Age culture achieving such feats seemed almost unbelievable to many. This void of understanding was quickly filled with more dramatic narratives, the most famous being a connection to the lost continent of Atlantis. Proponents point to Plato's description of a great seafaring empire that sank beneath the waves, suggesting Malta was a surviving outpost of this advanced civilization. Others looked to the stars, proposing that the precise alignments and massive stonework required knowledge beyond the Neolithic people, hinting at intervention by ancient astronauts who provided the missing technology. These theories are compelling stories, but they crumble under the weight of archaeological evidence. Mainstream archaeology dismisses them not out of closed-mindedness, but because the entire story of the Maltese temples is one of gradual, indigenous development. We can trace a clear, unbroken sequence in the soil, from the first simple rock-cut graves to the later, colossal complexes like Tarxien. There is no layer of advanced technology, no mysterious artifact that does not belong. Every single tool, every piece of pottery, and every carving fits perfectly within the known capabilities of the period. The builders used local stone, local styles, and their own evolving spiritual ideas. The astronomical knowledge they demonstrated, while impressive, was gained through generations of meticulous observation, a patient science well within human capability. To credit aliens or a lost super-civilization is to rob these people of their greatest achievement. It dismisses the power of cumulative human knowledge, of communal effort, and of a spiritual drive so powerful it could move mountains of stone. The true wonder is not that some outside force built these temples, but that ordinary human beings with nothing but stone and bone and brilliant minds created a legacy that has endured for over 5,000 years. Their story is not a mystery that needs solving with fantasy, but a profound testament to what we can accomplish on our own. These ancient stones are far more than archaeological relics to the people of Malta today. They are a living bedrock of national identity, a profound source of pride that connects every modern citizen to a deep and glorious past. You can hold this legacy in your hand. The iconic silhouettes of the temples, particularly the majestic ruins of Ħaġar Qim, are printed on the Maltese euro coins that pass through the islands every day. They grace postage stamps and inspire local art, serving as a constant, subtle reminder that this nation's roots stretch back into a history that predates most of the world's famous monuments. This is not a forgotten history, but a celebrated one, actively woven into the cultural fabric of the islands. The folklore surrounding the sites is especially vivid. The name Ġgantija above Ġgantija itself means giant's tower, and the local legend tells of a giantess named Sansuna who built these temples single-handedly, carrying the massive stones on her head while cradling her child in her arms. She sustained herself on a diet of broad beans and honey, a story born not from ignorance but from pure awe. When later generations looked upon these colossal walls, their scale was so immense that the only logical explanation was a race of giants. This myth is not dismissed today but cherished as a poetic testament to the unimaginable achievement of their ancestors. The temples provide a unique and powerful continuity. For modern Maltese people, they are a tangible link to the very first civilization that called these islands home, a people whose names are lost but whose spirit seems to echo in the limestone. They represent resilience, ingenuity, and a peaceful, creative society that thrived here for over 1,000 years. In a world of rapid change, these silent, steadfast structures offer a sense of permanence and a deep, mysterious pride that is uniquely Maltese. Planning a pilgrimage to these ancient stones requires a little strategy to fully absorb their magic. Securing entry to the Hypogeum is your first and most critical task, as only 80 visitors are permitted each day to protect its delicate microclimate. Tickets often sell out months in advance, so book online the moment your travel dates are firm. This is not an attraction you can simply decide to see on a whim. It is a privilege reserved for those who plan ahead. For the open-air temples, timing is everything. The islands bask under an intense Mediterranean sun, so aim for an early morning or late afternoon visit. Not only will you avoid the worst of the heat, but the low-angled light casts long, dramatic shadows across the carved altars, bringing the intricate spirals into sharp, beautiful relief. The spring and autumn months offer the most comfortable weather and the chance to witness the sights without the dense crowds of peak summer. If your schedule aligns with an equinox or solstice, you will understand the temples in a whole new way. Standing at Mnajdra as the dawn light precisely slices through the doorway is a moment of pure, ancient theater. A perfect day might combine the profound history of the temples with the raw beauty of the Maltese coast. After exploring the paired complexes of Ħaġar Qim and Mnajdra, take a short drive to the nearby Blue Grotto. Here, you can board a traditional wooden boat that will carry you through a series of spectacular sea caves, where sunlight filtering through the water illuminates the caverns in a dazzling electric blue. The contrast is unforgettable, from the timeless human handiwork of the temples to the breathtaking natural sculpture of the coastline. As you walk in the footsteps of the builders, remember that you are touching surfaces that have survived for over 5,000 years. Do not climb on the fragile walls and follow all designated paths. The soft Globigerina limestone is incredibly vulnerable to the oils on our hands and the pressure of our feet. Your respectful presence ensures that these silent stories will continue to whisper to generations yet to come. 5,000 years later, their silent testament remains. These are not merely ruins, but the oldest free-standing stone structures on our planet, raised to the sky by a people without metal, without the wheel, and without any written record of their names. We are left with the legacy of a society that channeled its collective genius into peace, into art, and into a profound conversation with the cosmos. They moved mountains of stone to build calendars that tracked the sun, and they carved goddesses from rock to honor the earth that sustained them. Then, as mysteriously as they arose, they vanished from the islands, leaving behind a civilization that simply faded from history. Their story forces us to rethink the very boundaries of human potential in the Neolithic era, proving that profound artistry, complex spirituality, and monumental engineering are not the sole province of later empires. They achieved all of this with nothing but stone, bone, and a shared vision that spanned generations, so we turn this final mystery over to you. After this journey through their world, what do you believe was the ultimate purpose of these ancient temples? Were they a celestial clock for a farming society, a sacred home for a mother goddess, or a gateway to commune with the ancestors? Share your own theories in the comments below. And if you were captivated by this journey into the deep past, subscribe for more explorations into history's greatest enigmas.